Hello everyone and welcome to Rollin'-ish. I'm Matt, and in today's video we're looking at Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. With the recent release of the 2024 Player's Handbook and the options provided from that handbook, we're taking a retrospective look back at the 2014 Player's Handbook, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything to really get a feel for the classes and subclasses that are offered to us by the original source books of 5th edition. If you haven't done so already, take a look at our class playlist. There you're going to find an Intro to video for all the classes and what you get levels 1 through 20, in addition to all the subclass options that are offered to you in your Player's Handbook, as well as videos that are tagged with the abbreviation XGtE, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and the subclasses that were offered through that source book. Just like this video begins with the abbreviation TCoE for Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, as we look at the subclasses that were offered in that book. Today, we're looking at the 2 Ranger archetypes that were offered to us as subclasses for the Ranger class from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, specifically starting with the Fey Wanderer. Now, a Fey Wanderer is going to be someone that represents both the material and the Fey realms throughout their adventuring career, and they have Fey power. So what you might want to consider when building this type of Ranger is, where did that power come from? Was it some shimmering fruit that you found on an ancient tree that you ate from that gave you this power? Was it maybe a swim that you took in a magical stream nearby? Was there anything different about the area in which you grew up? Did the streams run backwards and flow up instead of cascading down a waterfall and flowing out? These are some of the tricky things that the Feywild presents, and sometimes they leave impressions on the material world and things that are left behind. So maybe that's something that you can work into your backstory as you create your Fey Wanderer. Maybe you were born and raised in the Fey, but had to escape to the material plane for whatever reason. These are all different options you can consider incorporating in your build as you build this Fey Wandering type of character. In the end of the day, you are going to be a character that is going to bring joyful laughter, as well as flex a martial prowess that strikes fear to your enemies. So you might be that jolly character, but fearsome when it comes to, combative encounters. Naturally, that's how Fey creatures are. So what do you get? At 3rd level, when you choose this class, you start out with a first feature called Dreadful Strike. When you hit a creature with a weapon, you can deal an extra 1d4 psychic damage to the target, which can take this extra damage only once per turn. So as you, develop, an extra attack, or you gain feats that give you extra attacks, things like that, that's something to remember, that this only happens once per turn. It doesn't require an action or a bonus action. It just happens. In addition, this damage dice is going to increase to a d6 when you reach 11th level in this class. I'll take a d4 of extra damage anytime I can get one. But the fact that that can increase to a d6, and it's just something I get, I'll take it. You also get access to Fey Wandering Magic. These are going to be additional spells that present themselves to you at 3rd level as spells that you can have prepared and at the ready, that you normally might not get. At 3rd level, we have Charm Person, the ability to charm someone and kind of get them to do your bidding, as long as they're not harming or killing themselves. Misty Step is a bonus action spell, and it is a teleport up to 30 feet away. This is a great way to teleport and get out of a situation if you find yourself surrounded. And because it's a teleport and it happens instantaneously, this is a way to get out of a crowd without provoking opportunity attacks, because once you disappear, you're elsewhere now. How are they going to know to attack you? Right? At 9th level, you get Dispel Magic. This, to me, is one of the most underutilized spells, especially if you don't have something like Counterspell. Dispel Magic becomes very handy. I'm going to read the spell for the sake of selling it to you. This is an instantaneous 3rd level spell with a range of up to 120 feet, so it's far. Choose one creature, object, or magical effect within range. Any spell of 3rd level or lower on the target ends. For each spell of 4th level or higher on the target, make an ability check using your spellcasting ability. So for you warlocks and sorcerers, it might be charisma. For you wizards, it might be intelligence. For you clerics and druids, it might be wisdom. Okay. At higher levels, when you cast this spell of a spell slot of 4th or higher, you automatically end the effects of a spell on the target if the spell's level is equal to or less than the spell slot that you used. So if the object has a 5th level spell on it and you cast it at 5th level, it automatically ends. If an object or creature has a 5th level spell on it and you're casting at 3rd or 4th level, you're still going to have to make that ability check. The ability check's DC is going to be 10 plus the spell's level. So if it's a 4th level spell, 10 plus 4 is a DC of 14 using your primary ability score. This is important. There are a lot of spells, especially clerics, paladins, druids use, that create auras or areas of effect that buff party members who are close by. Casting a Dispel Magic ends that. So think about that in terms of your enemies, but also think about that because what if one of your enemies has this spell? It might come as a shock because you're thinking, oh, to stop this, they need to counterspell. Not necessarily. Dispel Magic is a slightly weaker version of counterspell. It's not a reaction, it's an action. So you can't counter a spell that is being cast. It has to be under effect for then you to come in here with Dispel Magic and negate it. And that's the difference between it and counterspell. Great spell though. At 13th level, you get access to a 4th level spell called Dimension Door. Now, similar to Misty Step, this is a teleportation spell. Instead of it being a bonus action, it's a full action, and your range is 500 feet. In addition to teleporting yourself from your current location, you arrive at the exact spot desired. It could be a place you can see, or you can visualize, or you can describe by stating a certain distance and direction. For example, I want to Dimension Door 250 feet over there on top of that ledge, right? That's very specific. You can bring along objects as long as their weight doesn't exceed what you can carry. You can also bring along one willing creature, and this is the difference between it, one of the differences between it and Misty Step, of your size or smaller. So if you're a dwarf and you're trying to bring along a tiefling, it's going to run into an issue because you're not the same size or smaller. If you're a tiefling, medium-sized, and you're trying to bring along a Goliath who's considered large, we're going to have a problem. But as long as they're the same size or smaller than you can, and they're willing, you can bring them along in this teleport. This is a great way to rescue an NPC or a party member from danger, or maybe they are just needing a boost to get from over here to closer to the enemy or closer to the exit or whatever it is the situation that is happening. So Dimension Door is a great one for that. At 17th level, you get access to a 5th level spell called Mislead. This is going to require your concentration for an hour. You become invisible at the time that an illusionary double of you appears where you are standing. So you become invisible and an illusion of you takes your place unnoticeably. You can use your action to move the illusion double up to twice your speed, okay, and make it gesture, speak, or behave in any manner that you choose. You can see through its eyes and hear through its ears as if you were located where it is. On each of your turns as a bonus action, you can switch from using its senses to using your own or back again. While you're using its senses, you are blind and deafened where you stand. For example, you are approaching a dragon's lair. You know the fight is coming, but you want to see what kind of setup is involved in this room without exposing your whole team to danger. Perhaps you use the Mislead spell and walk that illusion into that lair and figure out what's going on since you can see through that illusion's eyes. If the dragon is going to ambush you and hit you with its breath weapon, you're safe because it is your illusion that is getting attacked in this instance, not you. And now you can snap out of it and say, all right, guys, the dragon was hiding and it dropped down from the ceiling and blew fire all over my illusion. But guess what? We now know exactly where it is. It can't surprise us this time, and it just used its breath weapon. For those of you who DM, you know that you need to roll to recharge your breath weapon when you are using a dragon in combat. So that's a way to get your DM to fall into this kind of scheme to protect your party from certain doom, okay? That is a great way to use the Mislead spell, so think about that and other applications that might come. Okay, you also possess a blessing from a Fey ally or a place of Fey power. You could choose this blessing from the table or roll to find out. I like to roll, so let's see what we get here. Oop, 6. Your skin and hair change color to match the season at dawn. Love it. Things happen that are strange and inexplainable often in the Fae, and because you're from there and have Fae power and Fae ties, little things like this could be a great way to roleplay and spice up your character a little bit. Also at 3rd level, you get a feature called an Otherworldly Glamour. Whenever you make a Charisma check, you can gain a bonus to the check equal to your Wisdom modifier. In addition, you gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice. deception, performance, persuasion. These are all charisma based. So it makes perfect sense that you would pick up a proficiency. So when you're building this character and you know you want to take this subclass, maybe those are skills that you don't choose proficiency in the beginning, knowing that you're going to get one here. All right, at 7th level, you get a feature called Beguiling Twist. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. In addition, whenever you or a creature you can see within 120 feet of you succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened, you can use your reaction to force a different creature you can see within 120 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. If that creature fails, that target is charmed or frightened by you for a minute. So this is your way of being inspired by the fact that you or a teammate resisted this kind of effect, and you can rebound that, so to speak, to a different target of your choice, maybe an enemy. Okay. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a successful save. So this says to force a different creature you can see within 120 feet of you. It does not exclude the original creature that is trying to force that charmed or frightened condition. So if a hag is doing it to me or one of my teammates and we make the save, and I can force this to rebound back to the original, back to the hag, and get her to be frightened or charmed, that's karma. I love that. Some spells will say, like, other than the person doing the original thing. It doesn't say that here. So for me, Beguiling Twist, you're going to try and get me? No, I'm going to get you. Maybe that's the way you use it. I would. I'm petty like that. At 11th level, you get Fey Reinforcements. You know the Summon Fey spell. It doesn't count against the number of ranger spells you know, and you can cast it without a material component. You also can cast it once without a spell slot, so you get a freebie. And you regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. Whenever you start casting the spell, you can modify it so it doesn't require concentration. If you do, the spell's duration becomes a minute for that casting. Okay, so Summon Fey typically lasts for an hour. It's an action and is a range of 90 feet where you can drop that spirit that you summon. So this is a nice way to utilize a pretty decent spell in an easier fashion using your Fey Reinforcements. I like that a lot. Lastly, at level 15, there is a feature called Misty Wanderer. You can slip in and out of the Feywild to move in the blink of an eye. You can cast Misty Step without expending a spell slot. Now you saw you get access to that at 5th level, and it's a 2nd level bonus action spell. This is saying when you get to 15th level, you can cast it without expending that spell slot, and you can do so a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. So it might be worth putting some points towards your wisdom modifier. And you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. In addition, wherever you cast Misty Step, you can bring along one willing creature you can see within 5 feet of you. That creature teleports to an unoccupied space of your choice within 5 feet of your destination space. So wherever you plan on landing, your friend is going to come with you to an unoccupied space. That is awesome. That is super useful. The ability to just Misty Step a certain amount of times without burning spell slots is fantastic. So it's kind of like you dip into the Fey and right back to where you were. And again, this wouldn't incur opportunity attacks. This is a way for you to avoid damage and get you and a teammate out of a sticky situation. All right. That, my friends, is Fey Wanderer. And now we're going to move on to the second one, the Swarmkeeper Ranger. So the Swarmkeeper is going to be a ranger that has magical ties to the world, and they typically represent themselves in a swarm of spirits. The swarm is very potent in battle, but it's also could be very helpful in any other situation, even outside of combat, as your swarm basically follows you around. Some Swarmkeeper Rangers, because they have this constant swarm of spirits about them, could tend to be hermits, as to not scare off the populace. While others might be the type that is in the thick of it, helping the community, helping establish communities, and is a central part of the community. So you could take it on either end of the spectrum. What you get when you choose the Swarmkeeper at 3rd level is a feature called Gathered Swarm. While you're alive, the swarm remains in your space, crawling on you or flying and skittering around you within your space. You determine its appearance, or you can generate its appearance by warming on the swarm appearance table. you know me, if you've been watching these videos, I'm going to roll my d4. And I rolled a 1, swarming insects. All right, so maybe I'm really into dragonflies and I've got them all over me and they're flying around. I could do that. It is not going to surprise me to see to be, checking in on, playthroughs on YouTube or running my own games and have somebody who is going to have a swarm of spiders all over them. Now, if that's you, more power to you, but you won't find me trying to describe spiders all over me. No, thank you. But to each their own. Here's what you can do with said swarm. Once on each of your turns, you can cause the swarm to assist you in one of the following ways immediately after you hit a creature with an attack. So this is what they can do in combat. The attack's target takes 1d6 piercing from my swarm, so extra damage. The attack's target must succeed on a strength saving throw against my spell save DC, or by moved by my swarm up to 15 feet horizontally in any direction of my choice. I like that a lot. Maybe you roleplay that as fear. They see your swarm, it starts to crawl on them, and they just start backing up 15 feet. Love it. You're moved by the swarm 5 feet horizontally in a direction of your choice. So, because it reads that way, if you've already used your full movement, I'm going to give you this 5 feet. Because the swarm is moving you. You're being pushed. That's how I read that. So those are some things that they can do at 3rd level. Also at 3rd level, you get Swarmkeeper magic. You're going to learn the Mage Hand cantrip if you don't already know it. When you cast it, the hand takes the form of your swarm. So your swarm turns into a hand to do your Mage Hand. Excellent flavor there. I love that very much. You also learn an additional spell of 1st level or higher when you reach certain levels in this class, as shown on the Swarmkeeper spells table. Each spell counts as a ranger spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of ranger spells you know, so it's a freebie. So here's what they are. At 3rd level, you get Fairy Fire and that Mage Hand. At 5th level, you learn Web, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a sticky web that can help you move across surfaces if you can, or restrain others. Gaseous Form. This can turn you and essentially everything that you're wearing and carrying into a misty cloud and allow you to move at a speed of 10 feet to just be able to maybe slide under a door or get to a space you normally wouldn't be able to get to, although very slowly. This turns you into like a gas swarm, if you will. There's the spell Arcane Eye, which is really cool. Range of 30 feet. Duration is concentration lasting an hour. You create an invisible magical eye that hovers in the air. You mentally receive visual information from the eye that has a normal vision and dark vision out to 30 feet. The eye can look in every direction. You can send it to patrol. What do I see? So it scouts ahead without triggering traps, without, alerting, those in the other room, unless they can see invisible things. This is a good way to scout ahead. As an action, you can move that eye up to 30 feet in any direction. There's no limit to how far away from you the eye can move, but it can't enter another plane of existence. A solid barrier, like a door that's closed or a wall, blocks the eye's movement, but the eye can pass through an opening as small as an inch. So through a keyhole, under the door. This is a good spy spell. At 17th level, you're going to get Insect Plague, and this is a great spell. 5th level, concentration 10 minutes, can go out up to 300 feet away, creates a 20-foot radius swarm of insects. That's why it's called a plague, because there's so many. And they can do certain things like obscure the area, deal 4d10 piercing damage on a failed constitution save or half as much on a success. It can be upcast at higher levels for more damage. These are all things that I feel fit the vibe of the Swarmkeeper Ranger. Great spells. At 7th level, you get Writhing Tide. As a bonus action, you gain a fly speed of 10 feet and can hover. This effect lasts for a minute or until you're incapacitated. You can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. For flavor, perhaps it's your swarm that lifts you up. So if you're using flying insects, this would make sense. That's just a flavor thing, just for context to how to roleplay. It's part of the game. You might want to consider. This is what happens, because your DM might ask you, what does it look like when you hover and rise into the ground and then fly that 10 feet? How is that visually? What does everyone see? It's a good way that DMs like to get you to put your spin on how that looks. So consider that. At 11th level, you get Mighty Swarm. Okay? Your swarm grows in 2 ways, or 3 ways, I should say. The damage that your swarm deals increases from a d6 to a d8. If a creature fails the saving throw against being moved by your Gathered Swarm feature, you could also cause the swarm to knock that creature prone, okay? Because they're mightier, they've gotten better. Not only do they can push and knock over, right? They're growing like as you're growing. When you're moved by the Gathered Swarm, it gives you half cover until the end of your next turn. That's +2 to AC, +2 to dex saves. This is going to be something that is going to be very helpful because they're obscuring you and they're helping protect you. So they get to do a little bit more than what they start doing at 3rd level. And then lastly, at 15th level, you get Swarming Dispersal. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to give yourself resistance to that damage. You vanish into your swarm and teleport to an unoccupied space that you could see within 30 feet where you reappear with the swarm. So it's kind of like you took some of the damage, knew it was coming, disappeared, showed up over there, and you only took half that damage because it's resistance, right? That's a good way to flavor that. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. These are very versatile options that provide a lot of rich flavor, more so than some of the subclasses that were offered in this book for other classes. So if you're somebody that's really into role play, into descriptive parts of the experience in the game, this is for you. I think Fey Wanderer and Swarmkeeper are both great options. They provide you really cool features that are both helpful and help you deal more damage. So I don't see any real negatives with either one of these subclasses because they're very rich and well thought out. That's my take. All right, my friends, that is what Tasha's Cauldron of Everything offered in terms of subclasses for the Ranger class. In our next video, we're going to tackle the same, but for Sorcerer. Until then, have fun building your Ranger, and we'll see you at the table.